Okay, we're going to call this meeting at 6 o'clock.
Microphone.
We're going to call this meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Okay. Volunteer application. Huh?
Appreciation.
Presentation. Well, I'll put my glasses on.
Oh, boy.
Cookies.
Or can you hear me? Okay. Hi, I'm Laura Anson, and I'm on the Volunteer Coordinating Committee, and I'm here to, is it not on? It's on. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, sorry. And I'm here on behalf of the city and Keizer and the Volunteer Coordinating Committee to thank you for being a volunteer and to give you cookies.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
I like the presentation. We just get the plastic box.
What kind of chocolate chips are those?
Brown.
Stolen early?
I didn't know what they
Oatmeal
were
raisin.
But Matt's in charge now, so
Oh, well.
thank you all.
Uh-oh, Matt's in charge.
Well, I went back there to get a soda and I just smelled baked goods. I'm like,
Trying to follow his diet.
Looking so good. My God.
you're not supposed to.
That's okay, Dan.
Oh, gosh. Oh, gosh. I have to have one of these.
He was sitting next to the cookies and he just started eating
I was gonna say, you know, I got this tank for a reason.
You know, kids.
I got a question.
What?
You know, they go around giving to every committee. Who gets stuff for you guys? You guys are volunteers too.
I'm just gonna put
Oh, you do. Very nice. Thank you. Equity.
Well, in the, Debbie, if I'm right, there's only one, there's no positions right now vacant in the city for positions, right?
Well, Stormwater has a vacancy, and I'll start recruiting again in another month because
Wow.
it starts where positions start expiring, and so some people don't re-up, and so it's pretty much ongoing. But yes, right now we have a pretty.
That's
But
amazing.
I've been to the last few volunteer coordinating committees, and they do a really good job vetting candidates and going through the process. And so we've all been through there, becoming individual applicants for the boards and stuff, but they've been really busy, and they've actually had to make some tough decisions a few times. And so it's been fun to watch that. And the other thing I'd like to point out, well, I'll talk about that later on. Never mind. Anyways, thanks to the volunteer coordinating committee, too.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes. We all read the minute?
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Can I make one change
Okay.
first? My name has an A in the middle. Down on the parks reports part.
Well, that's not
Oh,
the
never mind,
minutes,
that's
so.
further down.
Yep.
Sorry, never mind.
Okay.
So as far as the minutes, motion to approve is presented.
Is it wrong? Oh, I see, I've got it wrong on the agenda, and it's, okay, got it. I
Thank
will
you.
fix that, Myra. Sorry.
Perfect, that's not a problem.
So we have a motion to approve the minutes as is.
Second.
Second by Donna. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
We may have some people.
Appearances of interested citizens. You look interested.
Anyway,
He even brought theme music with him. You can hear it in the lobby.
that's right.
I know.
All right. All right. There's no bulletproof.
Oh, you-
Yeah, no.
you're supposed to
Just
take
leap
it all.
over the top of this.
There we go.
Yeah, just jump over this, you'll be okay.
Yeah, thank you. I'll remember that.
Move fast slow.
Pay up your insurance.
I've got lots of insurance. Thanks to Nathan Bauer. What did I want to say today? Thank you all again for your time and members of the board.
You need to introduce
Robert.
yourself.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Hello, everybody. My name's Jeff Davis, and I'm currently working on a project. Right for this year, it's Claggett Creek and Country Glen. And I just wanted to give you a quick update. I currently have the equipment ordered, and it takes like 4 to 6 weeks to ship. I've also partnered with Mark Collier. He's a most people know him, Rotarian. We we talk real regularly. He's going to head up the actual site preparation and concrete installation aspect of the project. So real fortunate to have him kind of overseeing that. But in the interim, just kind of a lot of sitting around. Robert, myself, and Mark will go out and determine which spot makes the best sense for the parks in terms of the physical location of the equipment, and then it'll be a bit of a waiting game to get the actual site prep going, and then of course waiting for the equipment. So just want to give you a quick update and answer any questions anybody might have. Yes, Donna.
Date, thank you, dear. Yes. Do you have an ETA approximate? I mean, I know everything's kind of in flux right now, but do you have a
ETA on the equipment?
finish, when you'll be finished with the project, or
I'm
half of-
thinking the second week of June at the latest.
Okay, thank
So
you.
I've got a couple week buffer. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Matt.
Just a comment, Jeff, I've appreciated your diligence on this grant. A lot of times we've gotten folks, you and the Moores have done probably the best in terms of coming back and giving updates and things like that on the grant, so I really appreciate that. There's been a lot of times where we've given them out, and then we don't really hear anything until sort of when it's done or close to being done, so I just appreciate that. It was nice to hear about, again, how much Rotary is providing for this, $25,000 for this current project, right?
Correct.
And then potentially another 25 for the next go round is what the discussion has been?
12,500 this year, 5,000 for next year.
Okay, cool.
500, I'm sorry, per
Right.
year.
So 25 total over the 2-year project?
Correct.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and like I said, if you need volunteers, Mark knows how to get a hold of me, so do you, so let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Matt.
Yes, Roland.
I had something, but I want to echo what Matt said. And you know, I was once director of a Little League program real close here, and without Rotary, we wouldn't. I really applaud them because without them, all the projects we had out there, one after another. I mean, they pretty much paid for all of them, and that's so. I'm so happy that Rotary's still doing what they've always done, and they're a treasure in our community. And thank you very much. But that's not my question. My question was, in Country Glen Park, where is the location of the, have you already fine-tuned where exactly the struct, whatever you're doing there?
That's a great question. I think myself, Robert, and Mark are going to go walk the area and just see what's going to have the most access and the least, impact. I thought one of the concerns would be, you just don't want a bunch of people congregating near homes and stuff. So we're going to walk around and see what made the best sense. So we haven't actually picked a particular location. Robert might have some insights, though.
Given you live up there, where would you suggest it goes?
Yeah, great.
You know, every park kind of has a park
Yeah.
nerd. The park nerd over there, he's really on top of it. That's me.
That's you?
No, but I mean, everybody comes to me and asks me, oh, this is great. Where exactly is it going to be? So I'm actually asking for other folks. And
Well,
but we'll
Yeah.
whatever.
Robert brings
If you
up a
get any
great point.
feedback from the neighborhood, I'll start having our guys talk to everybody they see jogging by too, exercising,
One in
and
particular who's a regular.
Yeah.
He's all excited, and he asked me
Nice.
where exactly it's going to be. And I go, honestly, I don't know, but I can find out. And I know Jeff, and we'll figure out where they're going to be.
personally,
But-
I was
As long as
thinking,
logistically easy for the mowers or whatever.
well, I was thinking probably on the creek side, somewhere back along there, not too close to the playground, but close enough that, like Jeff said, you don't want a bunch of people congregating up by the houses, but at the same time, you want it to be seen and visible and usable, and,
Exactly.
yeah.
But anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate that, Robert.
And if you bring up a great point, if you want to have some input, we could let you know we're going to be over there, and you could share your thoughts, because it is a community park and community resource.
Well, we'll whatever Robert and folks determine.
Okay.
We'll have some input from folks, I'm sure. So, thank you very much.
Sorry. Okay. So will the equipment come with signs, or is that something that the city is going to need to provide, or will you, I don't remember, was that covered in the grant
Yeah, it actually,
that you got?
the directions for use of the equipment, the more complex piece of equipment, actually the directions are on the equipment,
Okay.
which is nice. We could have purchased signs to go with the pull-up bars and the push-up bars. However, I didn't do that. It was a few $100s more.
Pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then with that also, is there like any type of like liability that the parks or the city might have due to the equipment? Like if somebody were to get injured using it or anything like that? Have we, I don't know what the thought is around that, or if there is any type of a risk involved with somebody might getting injured if they are using it incorrectly.
That's a great question. Robert, do you have?
As far as the fixed piece of equipment, that's the multi-use. I mean, there's directions on it, so I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. Hopefully you read the directions before you use it. Chin-up bar, pull-up bar, push-up bar, box, whatever that one's going to be. I mean, we're going to have fall protection under it, which is going to cover, you know, it's going to be treated real similar to a play structure in that kids are going to do whatever they're going to do, whether it's right or wrong. And so hopefully if they fall, we're going to provide the protection from an injury in that aspect. So.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Matt.
So just one comment on layout. Take into consideration as you're looking at that area, right now there is sort of a soccer field out there, and thinking long-term in terms of strategy, obviously Robert's going to recognize this, but just think about how it may impact future uses of the park. So for example, if you don't want to stick it smack dab in the middle of the grass, obviously, right?
Right.
And Robert's going to give you all the best guidance and stuff on that, but just kind of, I would just really suggest looking at the longevity and sort of, you know, take a 10-year, 20-year look at it versus what it looks like right now and see the potential, not only just what it is right now, but look at what the potential might be.
Okay.
Yes, Wayne?
And also, if there's concrete involved, we want to make it a path to the concrete from the existing trail to make it inclusive for handicapped or disabled folks.
Sure. Thank you, Wayne. Yeah.
And there is a soccer field, so we don't want it in the center of the field.
I don't think
There will be a soccer field, probably by.
Keep that in mind.
is your mic on, Wayne?
Sure.
It is now.
Anybody else want to share any insights? We're kind of open to anything at this point because we really haven't.
I actually thought if it's on the creek side there, it's probably going to be pretty close to a walking path already, so you probably wouldn't have to add anything else. Just put down a cement pad, concrete pad. My brother-in-law would be mad if I said cement. But anyway, so that should cover that, I think, and that would also keep it out of the way.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Absolutely. Appreciate your time, and I can always be reached. I believe somebody has my information. It's in some of the past minutes, so I would say it on over the TV. But
Thank you.
Thanks for your hard work.
my pleasure. Thank you all for your hard work.
So Patty and Michael, yeah, I'm going to massacre them. Tisher?
Chairs fly, I remember that, so be careful.
They're not that heavy, Debbie. You can pass them on.
Okay.
So introduce yourself.
I'm Patty Tisher, and I'm also the president of the Greater Gubser Neighborhood Association. And this is my son, Michael, and he is working on his Eagle project. And so he wanted to come and share updates with you on what's going on with that.
What troop are you with?
I'm in Troop 20.
Ah, Byron's troop.
Is your mic on?
Maybe not.
Yes, it is.
You just need to bring closer to you.
Okay,
Just talk directly, just talk directly into it.
okay.
So, overall, I'm really close to finishing my Eagle, and my Eagle project is a little free library that I was going to put into Keizer Rapid Park over by the Big Toy. And I worked with a location with Robert, and we were going to put it over, like, in that dirt area a little bit in front of the cameras, like over by the bathrooms, not across the road from the bathrooms. And yeah, that way it could, hopefully it would be able to not be as damaged if it were to be prone to as it's pretty prone to vandalism. And yeah, I'm almost done with it. I just need to paint it, put some shingles on it, and then I'm ready to start putting it into the ground, which I'm about to do that. I hope to do that before the rainy days in the park coming up. And that it.
Well, we wanted to share that.
Yeah.
So that everyone knew, and we thought it would be good timing with a lot of people out in the park, that then they could enjoy books, and so,
If it ever stops raining.
I know.
It will.
It might be a good idea to explain how those little libraries work.
Oh, yes. So so how they work is you have a bunch of books in the library, and then people can go take books out, put other books in, put those books back. It's kind of like a functioning library without the library card, pretty much is how I like to think of it. And yeah, it's just a good way for kids to enjoy reading, even for adults too. So it's kind of fun for all ages. And I've been getting donations from various people from Next Door Gupser, right? Yes. Next Door Gupser. And
So did we get donations?
a couple of neighbors as well. So at work I got a big stock.
Yes, Roland?
Thank you, Chairman. So if somebody is it like kids' books or,
It's like kids' books. I was gonna put some teen books, adult books.
so if anybody want to donate books, do they bring them to you folks? Or?
Yeah, we could pick them up.
Then
Or
that's-
even just,
Yeah.
if there's a large amount, you don't want to leave them at the library, but
Yeah.
if you've got a half a dozen or so and there's space on the shelf, you can just put them in the library.
Way cool, way cool. And you can't reach them from the bathroom, right?
Yeah, I know.
But you can grab one before you go.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, good job.
Thank you.
No flashing.
Are you going to have like a plexiglass
Yes.
to keep them waterproof?
Yeah.
Okay.
Matt?
And I think a little free library is a really great idea. It's be a welcome addition to Keizer Rapids.
Definitely.
So you're expecting to have this in you said by the 20th of April is what you're
Yeah.
thinking? Are you going to do any sort of, because I know it's kind of a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Getting your Scout project done, Eagle Scout project done. Are you going to do any sort of opening thing, or are you just going to stick it in the ground and be good with it?
I mean, I think I might go with my troop and we might celebrate a little bit, go to like a pizza place afterwards, but really like, I mean, at the same time, rainy days, yeah, it's not, I mean, it shouldn't overshadow rainy days in the park, personally, in my opinion, so
How could you?
just something nice and small.
Well, I can tell you, as the coordinator for the Soggy Day in the Park event that day, if you wanted to work with us on that, we could set aside a little bit of time for you to make sure to celebrate that. Let me know.
All right, I'll keep that in mind, thank you.
I'm going to suggest that you call Keizer Times too and let them know. I'm sure they'd be happy to come out and take a picture and put it in the paper. I think that would be a great opportunity to let people know.
Yeah, definitely.
Good suggestion.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say, I appreciate that as an idea for going in out there. I take my grandkids out there, and you get out at the park watching a few kids play, and maybe somebody gets kind of bored,
Yeah.
wants to do something else. It'd be nice to have something like that to do. And I know as an adult sitting out there, sometimes I don't always go well prepared, so it'd be nice to be able to grab a book or something to look at while I'm sitting out there. So, great idea.
Any other comments?
Any plans for like a bench or anything like that nearby?
Yeah, it would be nice, but really, I really was just focusing on the library itself. It was-
Next one.
yeah.
But he has committed, he made the agreement with Mr. Johnson that he will stock and oversee it for 2 years.
Wow.
Good.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
Because, and he's got extra supplies, and so he got duplicate plexiglass. It'll get
Wow.
broken. I mean, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And so we've got extra supplies. When he got his donations, he made a couple of duplicates of some of the pieces so that in anticipation, when they get broken, he'll have something to replace them with.
Good plan.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A welcome addition to Keizer Rapids. Thank you.
Thank you very much, young man.
Okay, yeah, great. Well, and it'll get registered too.
Yes, Keizer is going to do a map to all of the new libraries, so, yes.
Next.
All right. Change in the matching grant application. Matt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we were successful last meeting in making a recommendation to increase the matching grant fund from 10,000 to 15,000. As I understand it, Parks folks have put that together for the budget, and it sounds like that's going to go forward as is. What I'm going to pass along to you all is what I emailed last Friday. What I'd like to do is I'm just going to read through the changes first, kind of discuss the philosophy second, and then maybe we can have a little discussion on sort of where we want to go with this. There's some opportunity in here to change it to be a little bit more permissive in a couple areas, and to clarify things in a couple other areas, and then to establish the portion of the youth fund part. So the first change is pretty minor. It's in the middle of the first page. It says, for the reimbursable portion of the matching grant program each year. Then it goes on to say the board will solicit applications from citizens for projects, et cetera, and so on. So basically, it takes the original language that says this applies specifically to the reimbursable portion of the match program. Then talking about the under 3, it says the board may also consider the youth project fund. That should have actually been in red, so I apologize because that's new language. The goal is to enable and encourage Keizer's youth to participate in the volunteer experience through creative projects within the Keizer Park system. The what? A funding stream that will allow Keizer youth to do projects ranging from maintenance like painting to capital projects like benches or picnic tables. Youth project fund. Grantees shall complete the youth project fund plan and have it approved by the Parks Board. How? Step 1, Keizer youth come up with an idea as outlined in the project categories listed above or work from a preset list of ideas. Step 2, do research and find out what it will take to get the project done. In many cases, if it is a predetermined project, we may already know this, and we can kind of tweak this language a little bit. Step 3, create a plan, have dates, times, people involved. Step 4, get a project sponsor from either the council or the Parks Board. This will ensure that the project does not fall through and creates a layer of accountability. Step 5, present to Parks Board and request funding. Step 6, staff purchase material. Step 7, project completion. Step 8, project follow-up with the Parks Board. Then the next change comes on page 3, top of the paragraph where it says, applicant will need to complete the project, have the project accepted by the city, and provide appropriate copies of receipts for materials and other costs associated with the project to receive funds or reimbursement. Again, that's sort of that permissive piece right there. Grants approved under this section may be reimbursable. Reimbursable grants, grantees will need to complete the project, have the project accepted by the city. Grantees will provide documentation to support all monies spent as well as details related to all in-kind contributions as follows. For monies to be reimbursed, first, detailed expense reports. Second, copies of invoices and receipts. For in-kind contributions, you need copies of invoices and receipts for donated materials, equipment, etc. Number of volunteers, number of cumulative volunteer hours. For the Youth Project Fund, shall comply with the requirements set forth in the Youth Project Fund program. For materials to be purchased, detailed list of all materials to be purchased, company name, company location, cost per item, quantity, shipping and delivering costs. For monies to be reimbursed, detailed expense reports, copies of invoice and receipts. For in-kind contributions, copies of invoices and receipts for donated materials, equipment, etc., number of volunteers, number of cumulative volunteer hours. And then the last recommended change is on the very last page, bottom paragraph, bullet point, it says grants may be reimbursable grants. For reimbursable grants, the grantee will need to complete the project, have it accepted by the city, and provide copies of receipts for materials and other costs associated with the project to receive reimbursement. For the youth project fund, the grantee will need to comply with the rules established for that program. Okay, so this language is not 100% inclusive. I've spoke with Robert about it a little bit. I think that if we, as a board, decide that this is the general path we want to go, basically what will happen is Robert and Bill will go back to the drawing table a little bit, tweak the language where it's necessary, probably talk to legal a little bit about it, and we would ultimately get the final draft, which would be the final recommendation for council, correct, Robert?
Yes.
Okay. So again, I think that we sort of got a little bit ahead of the game last time and diving into the funding piece of it more specifically rather than kind of talking through how this would function, which was great because we needed to get that done to get it ready for the budget cycle. But some of the concerns I heard were, I think, good concerns, but I probably could have been captured had we dove into the language here. The key piece here and the key distinguishing difference between sort of the traditional reimbursement grant versus the youth grant is the youth will have to have a sponsor and will have to have that accountability piece. Again, recognizing that if in fact the language is maybe reimbursable, I think that opens up the reimbursable or the traditional grant program to essentially be funded up front, similar to what the youth program would be. Again, that's at the discretion of the board. So if we look at it and say, nope, sorry, you're going to do this on a reimbursement basis, we can set it up that way. But if it's something where, you know, they might need $5,000 or whatever as seed money to kind of get some things moving on a project, we could also take that into consideration. So I think that's kind of it in a nutshell. I'd like to hear what your guys' thoughts are. You've had it for 4 or 5 days now, and I'd just like to see what y'all think and see where we need to go.
Hello, Richard. Hi, Richard. Did you want to comment on this?
Clint asked me to come down, so I would love to.
I didn't know when you would not want to.
Wait,
I don't think he wants to talk on this.
not this.
What subject did you want to talk on, Richard?
I was the caretaker.
Oh, okay. Well, you can just listen to us babble until then.
So
Well-
I have a couple of questions, of course, if nobody else has anything.
So the only thing,
Go ahead.
if I may suggest, since we do have somebody coming in from the public, if we wanted to put this on pause for a second to allow them, or if we just want to move through this and Richard can wait, I don't care either way, but.
No, let's go ahead and continue this. Any comment? Oh.
Yeah, I do have,
Well,
I have a
Donna's,
comment.
Dylan,
okay.
So I reached out to Lori Shaw Caceres of the City of Salem. She's from the Youth Development Department over there, and asked her if she would be able to help us out with any sort of language on this, and if there's any like comparisons that we can make to some of their available youth funding programs. And she said she would help us, but I haven't managed to get out language to her yet, which is actually good because it ended up changing recently. So that is something we can offer to like lock stuff down. As you said, I don't think that it's a big deal to decide this is the way we want to go and then firm up the details on like the specifics of the language later. But we can reach out to her and get some more input on what City of Salem's youth projects are like and how they're funded.
What did you say her name is?
Lori Shaw Caceres. I can give you the exact spelling if you'd like. I'll bring it over.
That would be great, thank you.
Anyway, sorry. I don't have much more than that.
So I also have some recommendations for the form back here. I don't know if that was part of you wanting to edit this, but since we are changing the language to ask for funds or reimbursements as well to incorporate more language around the youth project fund, I think it would be ideal if we could also have a section here so people who are applying for the grant can let us know whether they're looking for funding up front, for reimbursements, or if it's specific to the youth project fund.
Yeah, so I specified in my email that I hadn't touched the form, that it would be looked at once language is final up. But
Okay.
yeah, makes sense.
And then the other thing too, just for just kind of, and this is just because it makes sense to me, but the first page where it says goals, what, how, it would just make a lot more sense if it was goals, what, who, and then how. That was just another little thing there. That's it. Thank you.
So Zara, are you suggesting, so the how would be the youth, for the youth project fund? Or what
Yeah,
are you-
well, it says the goal, and then it spells out what the goal is for the youth project fund, and then it says what, and then after that, it says youth project fund, and then it says grantee shall complete the youth project fund. The youth project fund, that piece right there, it kind of just doesn't really make sense. So it would make a lot more sense if it said who, or who, and you're talking about the grantee. That's just a tiny little edit, but.
So what you're saying is that that third paragraph is more a how?
No, what I'm saying, the how is, it makes sense to have the how. The third paragraph is the who. It's talking about who is going to be involved.
So eliminate youth project fund, say who grantees shall complete the youth project fund and have it approved by the Parks Board?
Or youth interested in.
That is not a who.
Or, well, or something other along the line of the who, or.
Matches the rest of the
Yeah, because it just kind of goes from goal, what, how, and then it doesn't really make sense to have the youth project fund there, because that's kind of the name of the
That's kind of an
project.
action rather than a group.
And it's just like a little tiny thing, but it just doesn't read well, and
It seems like that should go under how.
Correct. I agree.
You need to make maybe one more step.
So move the how up above the youth project fund piece.
yeah, that would make sense too.
That youth project fund piece, because it tells them they shall complete the plan, so it should be one of the steps
Yeah, it's part of the how.
Or an introduction to the steps, probably?
or something, yes.
Yeah, okay. But I agree adding sort of a who in there might be beneficial
An
too.
additional piece that says who.
Along that same line, it seems to point you to, so it says complete the youth project fund plan. But then I'm not totally clear on what exactly the youth project fund plan is. There's a spot on page 3 where it says youth project fund, and then it says shall comply with the requirements set forth in the youth project fund. Is that the stuff immediately after that?
Yeah, so, I mean, basically what it boils down to, anytime you look at a policy or anything like that, a lot of times you'll sort of see like a headline, you'll see a descriptive of sort of who all this sections generally applies to, and then you go into the details specifically related to that section. So that's kind of where it's modeled after. I mean, it is a little bit repetitive, but it's how policy language generally is written.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I figured that's probably something that can be cleaned up by our staff anyway, so as long as it fits. I assumed that's the case, but I just wanted to
A
clarify.
lot of times when you look at policy, there's no rhyme or reason on how this stuff's written, so.
Yeah.
I have a couple of suggestions for refinement. Form numbers are important, or dates of policies are important. So be sure and add those kinds of things in when you get ready to finish that stuff, so that we know that this is a current form and not a past due form. I got a little confused on some of that when I was reading through this, of what was current, what was past due. And that's probably because of whatever's going on in my head.
Well, but again, as it relates to the form, I didn't do anything,
I
make
know,
any
I know.
recommendations of the form at all, and the dates and things like that.
Right.
'Cause, you know,
I understand that now.
yeah. No, and I could have made that more clear, I apologize, thank you.
I don't know why I said this, but I was looking at this Parks Advisory Board grant program document.
On the back, right?
And the last line, the youth project, the grantee will need to comply with the rules established for that program. What? For the
Where are you
rules
at?
established for what program?
Where are you at on that specifically?
I'm at the
Laura?
very last.
She's on the last page, the last line.
Last page, last line of the paragraph.
Well, so
Yeah.
for the youth, okay. So instead of that program, it would, to be more prescriptive, you could say for the youth project fund.
Yeah, more descriptive would be helpful. Again, policy documents are sometimes a real pain
Yep.
because everybody needs to be clear. Preset, predetermined, on the first page in the the house steps, it's either it's preset or it's predetermined. It can't be both. So you pick one and go with that over.
Yep.
So I know those are picky little things,
No,
but
it's-
they do help clarify for anybody that's reading the document. Other than that, I think that we should go forward with this as quickly as we can.
So step one, put predetermined to stay consistent with step
Yeah,
two.
yeah.
Okay. So, Mr. Chair, if I'd like to personally opine on whether or not, as a personal note, we want to follow Salem's recommendation or not. I mean, I think we were working through some stuff. If it's the board's just desire to wait and see what another city's doing, then so be it. You know, there's not really a need to reinvent the wheel, but I think we've got a pretty good program, and I think that adding to what we have isn't going to be overly cumbersome, but I'd be interested. I mean, Dylan seem like they might have something better and easier to work with, but
I don't know if that's the case. I just reached out and asked if they were willing to work with us on it, and they said yes. So if we're interested in that, they were willing to help us.
Yeah, no, where that came from was when Roland's fill-in last time said when they did the Eagle Scout, they were able to go straight to the city of Salem.
Right.
There was a real easy process. Boom, they got the money and moved forward. I believe that's where the whole reaching out thing went, not trying to
Yeah,
get
no, I'm not.
direction.
no, I appreciate Dylan looking at it. He's always
The more
fun.
information, the better.
Yeah.
No.
I'm not picking on Dylan at all.
Oh, shoot.
Yes, you
This
are.
time.
No,
I'm just kidding. It's okay.
Not this time.
I'm not picking on you either. So.
I got you, man. I got you.
All right, we're good.
Okay, is there any other grammatical or whatever?
Well, so
Grammatical.
I think it's important to kind of go back to what I just said. Do we want to put this conversation on hold pending whatever Salem's reconstructing and look at it, or do we want to be Keizer and do what Keizer does and make our own program?
Well, I don't think we should copy the program, but I would certainly like to see what they've learned, if anything.
I think that given, we rework any small, changes that need to be made to the language, what this says and what we're doing with it, I'm okay with. So I'd be fine moving forward with it. However, if other people were interested in hearing from Salem, that wouldn't be terrible, but I'm comfortable moving forward on this, personally.
I just feel like from the budgetary perspective, I'd like to go forward with a plan, at least some sort of a semblance of a plan for the
So that we
additional
can ask for the
5,000.
funding.
I'm sorry?
So we can fit in the funding.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
why are we asking for the money, right? And if we're coming with our hands out saying, well, we
We'll
have
figure
an
that
idea
out
to come up with
later.
a plan, doesn't look like we're really doing our jobs. I think if we want to get this pretty gosh darn close or ready, and then maybe in 6 months when Salem's done with theirs, we can come back and revisit it in a year. I don't know.
Revise.
We may see that there's some things in here that just simply don't work, or things that we want to add or remove or what have you to make it easier. Because, who knows, Robert might get to the end of this thing and go, dude, it's way too complex to go this route. We need to make it a little bit easier, right? Flexibility is important. And if we're not reevaluating what we're doing, then we're not doing it right, frankly. But just my thoughts. I would personally be more comfortable going with a recommendation with at least somewhat solid plan rather than a recommendation with a concept. Just my opinion. A concept pending additional information.
Oh, you just want to go forward with what we have and,
That's just, I think if you're going to put, anytime you're asking for anything better or more, it's better to put your best foot forward. And
Better put
having some
your
sort of a
shoe
language and a recommendation within our own program as our best foot versus, well, we have this idea, but we want to wait and see what Salem's going to do before we really kind of put a bow on it and move forward.
I agree with that.
Same.
Robert, any thoughts on this at all?
We can always modify it if they actually have a better idea.
I think Clint's got some.
Yes, Clint?
No, I don't.
Okay. So,
So what I don't I don't know. I hate being the only one talking. Somebody come up with something here.
Should we make a motion to
When did that start?
should we make a motion to move forward with this then? It sounds like at least a majority's on board with that.
We're getting a lot of north-souths, or you're getting a lot of north-souths around the dais, so.
So here's my plan. Based off of the feedback that I've heard from Zyra, Donna, and Dylan on a couple of these items, there's a few language tweaks that are simple to make. Which, I mean, I can have that done and sent back to y'all tonight if we really need to take a look at it. And then we can forward a recommendation. How would we even shape this out? I don't know.
When do we have to have it in?
There's no deadline, but, I mean, if we had this hashed out next month, that'd be good.
So we could pass the concept tonight
Yeah.
and wait to approve
Take
the
the
final form
concept,
with the changes?
get us your changes. Staff
you-
can
and then you
review it,
guys
do
can-
some formatting changes maybe, or, you know, if we can simplify it any way, shape, or form. I'm not saying remove words, just formatting, and then get your guys' final approval. And as long as y'all are working on it, it
We
looks
don't
good.
necessarily need a motion for this to basically take this language, send it to you guys.
No,
Have y'all rework it to bring back next
Personally,
month.
don't think that's going to hinder you guys too much as far as getting the change, the dollar amount change in the grant program, because we know you're working on it. So,
So I'll make the notes that I heard and wrote down, and I'll send it off to Robert. You guys can wordsmith and bring us back a product next month.
okay.
Good deal.
Thank you, Matt.
Is that really the end of that, or is is that really the end? We're good. We don't. There's nothing else we need to. I feel like that was too easy. After last one.
You're going to come back with changes.
You're having flashbacks to the old
Done,
days.
done.
We're not done.
Flashbacks to last meeting.
I'm very satisfied with that. If that's the case.
He's like about to
Don't
jump
look
up and
at
down.
the
over
forest.
Settle down, no, it's
Yeah.
okay.
So do you want to hear from Rich Walsh or?
Yes.
It's kind of out of order, but yeah, come on up, Rich.
That's usually how Rich is, though.
I
A little
know,
out of
he's
order.
always out of order.
Thank you very much, Chairman, members of the board, and I really do extend my sincere apologies. I had this down at the wrong time on my calendar, and I thank Clint for reminding me that I wasn't here. This started basically because I was giving Clint a hard time about the caretaker thing, and he says, "Why are you talking to me? Why don't you talk to everybody on the board?" And so here I am. Some of you are new, and so I just wanted to give a little bit of history to why this is a big deal. And if you know what I'm talking about, it's the caretaker that's in Keizer Rapids Park. There's a house that the Parks Board owns, that the Parks Department owns, it's down there. And we used to have a caretaker down there. Apparently that program has changed or is changing, and there's a concept of maybe putting a renter in there. And I just wanted to make sure that I'm on record of saying that I think that's an absolutely horrible, terrible idea, and we should fight it with everything we've got. Back in the day, just to give you a little history, when we bought Keizer Rapids Park with all the different grants that we cobbled together, and we tried to purchase it with all kinds of different partners. One thing was kind of clear in our mind is that we wanted this to be used by the people of Keizer the way people of Keizer want to use it. And that includes the concerts in the park, that includes different events, that includes perhaps even some other kinds of community get-togethers. We had a fair down there. We had other things. We saw that as growing. And one of the biggest challenges to that is to make sure that you're not upsetting the closest neighbor. And the biggest problem with the caretaker house is it's the closest neighbor. It is literally a couple of feet away from the heart of that park. And everything is based on distance to the closest neighbor. The noise variance or the noise ordinance is based on how much noise is it, not where you make the noise, not in the amphitheater, but how much noise is there at the closest neighbor. The rules like that are in play. And those are actual rules. You go down, and if the house is right next to the amphitheater, which that house is, that's going to quiet everything down. That's going to make concerts not enjoyable for most people to go there if you follow all the normal noise ordinances and everything else, and you follow Keizer's own rules. Recognizing that, we went through quite a bit of effort to buy that house, to make it a non-player in all those decisions. And there was one other thing that happened around that same time, and that we had experience with the Volcano Stadium. And the Volcano Stadium also wanted to do some somewhat loud events. You know, maybe they're going to have fireworks, maybe they're going to have this, maybe they're going to have that, maybe RV shows and all kinds of things. And there was one neighbor that was close by, one neighbor. And that one neighbor would show up, and the Keizer City Council would try to be accommodating to that one neighbor. We're trying to be a good council, trying to be good to our citizens. We don't want to cause any trouble. So we would like, okay, well, we'll shut down at 7. We'll do this, we'll do that. And all those accommodations, not because we had to, but because we're a good council and we care about our citizens. And I understand that. And if you have someone, just a regular resident who's renting that house in the middle of the park, future councils and future boards will make accommodations for them. And that was the whole reason why we went out of our way to make sure that that house was purchased and that it was part of the park and that it would not be part of the, it wouldn't be held back, it wouldn't hold back all the programming for all of eternity. And that's even a bigger issue now, because if you have a renter in a house that you're renting to, it's very hard to get rid of them under the new laws that we just passed in Oregon. That person's going to be there for 100 million years, or at least until, you know, well, maybe, I hate it when people exaggerate 100,000 times.
Yeah.
But anyway, my point is that I think it's really important that we not do that. Now, a couple of things I wanted to point out, and that is that we also saw a huge benefit to having a caretaker down there at the park. It's very important to have eyes and ears down there, even if they don't do anything. If they're just listening, it sends a message to the entire community. This is not where you want to be homeless. This is not where you want to be coming into the park at night. If the more the eyes and ears are out, the more likely it is that people won't choose to go there to do nefarious activities. And we've seen, how long has the caretaker been gone now?
About a year.
Year-ish.
Okay, so we've been seeing an uptake. I've been there now for 5 or 6 years, and we've been seeing uptake in people that are coming down there at night. Why not? The cops can't come there all the time, and when they do, it's very obvious. If we have someone there who's always listening, always available, then I think the activities will be curtailed down. I live right next, I'm the next closest house, also renting on Keizer Park. Yeah.
So this was actually something that the board took to city council as a recommendation in the fall. I think it was fall or late summer. We came up with a recommendation to determine the feasibility of reestablishing the caretaker position. It was a resounding no.
Well,
So, I mean, I'd be happy to make this recommendation again. I think that what you're going to see, though, is the council's going to come back and tell us no again. And so I think this is at a level that's beyond the Parks Board, frankly. Because is that house, is it in city limits or is it in Marion County?
It's in, I believe it's in city limits now.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I don't know if that portion is. I'm just curious. I mean, regardless, as far as the noise and all that, I mean, you know about variances and all those other things that come into rental agreements and things like that. I mean, those are important things. But I think in terms of this particular item, you know, everybody that's up here, with the exception of Mike and Ben, made this recommendation back in late summer, early fall to bring the parks caretaker back, and we were told no.
well, there's been a couple things that have changed since then. One thing is that when they haven't rented it out yet, right?
Correct.
So I think that your window of opportunity is still here. And a couple things have changed, such as the Oregon laws have changed regarding renters. They're a much bigger, more permanent thing. You can't just let them come in and, if they're not compatible with the park, we can just let them go, you know, on a month-to-month lease. That's the way it used to be. That's not the way it is now. Things have changed. It's dramatically, the stakes are much higher. If they're not breaking their lease, we can't get them out. And I think that deserves some reevaluation by the board. Now, the other thing is that I agree with the city, I think I might agree with the city that particular caretaker, since he was a city employee, created a lot of problems. I mean, I think you got issues with overtime, issues with some kind of HR issues. Those things did create a problem, and perhaps that was politically correct to do it the way they did it. But now that we have a vacant house, we can do it the right way and bring in somebody like Oregon State Parks does, where they bring in a volunteer/caretaker who does not have any other affiliations with the city, is not a city employee. You don't have to worry about benefits or overtime or whether or not they're being properly compensated or whether or not they're being asked to do too much. And you can keep you can make it basically exactly like the Oregon State Parks did, which is the way we originally intended it to be.
But if it's a compensation-based issue and their compensation is the house,
Right.
you still have to go out through a formal RFP process.
Sure, you can still do that, I understand that, but we had last time a city employee working
No,
40 hours a week.
I understand that, but you still fall under a lot of rules specifically related to, if it's a compensation, regardless of whether or not it's a rent or payment compensation, and what you're talking about under the Oregon parks, they get paid for their time, but they also get the space for free, and then they take care of the facility.
Right, but if you look at the packages given to those park hosts in all of our state parks, it is nothing like the packages we give to city employees working here.
Well,
I'm
fine.
sorry. But it's much more cost effective. Basically for the cost of, I mean, I don't know exactly what it'll be. Maybe you're right. Maybe we have to look into it a little bit. But I would rather see that house be vacant, as much as I hate to give up the income flow, which I think would also be a terrible waste, than it would be to get involved in a rental program with somebody who's not associated with the city, who's right smack in the middle of the Keizer Rapids Park.
Clint?
Oh, I'd like to hear from city council what they think about this subject.
There's a couple things. One of the things is I can't, I'm going to be part of the body that makes the decision, but I'll tell you what I did know from my side was the conflict of what you mentioned. I think it's a great idea to have a park host. I think but just the whole idea. I used to be an employee, so I'm kind of a different, I'm friends with people that are employed, and the process to me was not right. And nothing against Shane or whatever, but I think it was, when you ask who answers and who keeps the hours and all that stuff, it was kind of vague. It wasn't the same it was for like Juan over here, or it wasn't the same for him. So I had a problem with myself with that. I had no problem with what we were doing there, but when you ask questions like, the time, what kind of the overtime we were talking about, some of those questions weren't answered. So next thing I knew, they were saying, okay, we're going to get rid, and I thought, well, it's okay. But as far as another point that you made with the volcanoes, the folks living there were already there. When I go buy a house by the railroad track, I'm going to expect there's going to be noise by the train. So, on the language of you coming in, whatever, that's a whole different thing than if you're there already and they come and build a.
Common sense would say
It's like my
that.
dad used to say, if you buy a house by the railroad track, you're going to have noise,
Common
So you
sense
already
would-
know that, I hate coming in.
Common
The oth-
sense would say that, but I do want to remind you that the people that did cause the biggest trouble with the original concerts were people that moved to the neighboring areas of Keizer Rapids Park after it was a park.
Yeah, well, if you follow up on that, those people are now at those concerts. You know that.
Well, I know,
But
they
anyway,
won them over, but it's still, the point is that whoever comes there, for airports deal with this all the time, is that, oh my gosh, we were there first, but they still cause huge problems.
Yeah,
And
well-
people will take their thoughts into consideration. They won't just say, forget you, I'm not going to care
I like the
about
idea
it.
of having a park that's not affiliated with the city or something like that, that's fair for, that's a good.
That's what I'm asking, is it's time to
and
reconsider
all
it.
that, but that's not that's something the park board has to recommend. I don't,
So if I may, I just want to give some information to the board, because Shane Witham, the caretaker that was there for years, had to go through a process that other volunteers did too. There was, the volunteer coordinating committee interviewed several different candidates to see which one would be the most appropriate. So it wasn't just a shoe-in as a city employee. I just wanted everybody to know that.
I think he was an excellent park host, by the way, and I think he was a wonderful choice. But the problems that the city, as I understood it, had some problems with is he works 40 hours a week here, and then he puts in his time over there. I think it created some problems that wouldn't be there if you took someone brand new, just like Oregon State Parks does, interview them, hire them, and just move forward. And I think that this is a time to
Want to hire him.
Well,
excuse me?
The problem is the city doesn't want to hire anyone. They want a volunteer.
Well, and maybe that can still be done with a pure volunteer. Like I said, Oregon State Parks, those people are basically, as I understand it, volunteers for the space.
They're paid.
But they are being compensated, this person would be compensated by having a home.
Right. So
And compensation has to come from somewhere, and the city owns that property.
Right, so it doesn't cost the city any budgetary line items.
Correct, but it does give them responsibility as an employer.
That's fine. We have a lot of employees, they can do that.
I'm curious, Rich, can you shed a little bit of light on how the Oregon State Parks program works? You've talked a little bit about it, but I'm curious, is it just like they don't pay rent in exchange for they're in the house and will call 911 if somebody's doing drugs in the park? Is that kind of the idea, or?
If you've ever been to a state park, they kind of manage the firewood, they go around, pick up litter, they tell people, they set up little reservation signs. They don't have it's not a terribly burdensome job, but it is something that expects them to be there and to have their eyes and ears open and to do various things. And as I understand it, and I'm not going to speak for the Oregon State Parks, especially since I'm 15 years out of the loop from when I looked at this carefully. But at the time, they basically didn't get any additional compensation, and they all did a very, very important job. Without them, they wouldn't open the Oregon State Parks. And it's a good model. It's the model we were hoping to follow, and we kind of started down that path, and I think we should revisit. I think this is a good time to revisit it in light of the change of the rental rules. Is it appropriate to rent it? In light of what Roland just said about maybe he could reconsider it if it's fresh, if I was hearing you correctly on that, a fresh approach. At least a decision needs to be made if we're going to rent this out in a normal basis after the Oregon legislature changes the rules on rentals. At a minimum, I think that's a new question.
So parks hosts now get paid salary in addition to their benefits and stuff as
Do
an
they?
LD employee. Yes,
Okay.
I'm saying factually they do. So they do it on LD, usually through seasonal type stuff, whatever. This concept is not foreign. I think this concept was actually even discussed loosely during this whole conversation. I think it's one of value in bringing up. Again, I mean, I think this is something that we've been hearing not only from you, which is an adjacent neighbor, but others. I've seen it firsthand. In fact, I think it got brought up, I don't even remember when it was, but it's worth looking at. What I would like to maybe find out from either Chris or somebody from the council is exactly, it's kind of one of those things, like I'm not in the business of wanting to get into the operations of the city. I don't think that's what our position on this board is to do, is to get in the operations piece. So maybe what I'd be interested to see from Robert, if he could bring something back in terms of what the plan is, how a rental is going to impact concerts and other things like that, how it's going to sort of play out in terms of how they're going to look at that. I'm sorry?
Pros and cons.
Yeah, and sort of, and then maybe even ask the question on whether or not it's even within the realm of possibility to bring in somebody to be sort of that park staff person, and their sole function is to live in the house, take care of the park. I mean, we're revisiting the same topic again, but maybe because now it's a new person, new scenario, there might be some discussion there. But one of those things that even if we give it to them for free, it's $15,000 net revenue every year lost, right? And if there's benefits and everything else associated, then we start eating into Robert's ability to do his 5-year plan, which I know is important, but at the same time, we got to think about security of the park as well.
Well, and security is another issue, is that if you allow someone deep in the park to bring in themselves and their friends, you can't stop that from happening, throwing parties, whatever.
A caretaker's not going to be able to stop it anyways, they can call, right?
What's that?
The caretaker doesn't have civil penalty authority. They can't go down and arrest people. All they can do is call the police.
That's fine, but this house would have parties themselves that would be legal. I mean, I think I speak for,
As a rental?
as a rental, I think that I would speak for most of the neighbors, which is very unusual for me in this situation. But I think the neighbors as a whole would really appreciate having the caretaker there. And I think that if you do go forward with your plans to improve the lower field, which I think is on your budget for 2 years from now or a year from now, but to actually turn it into a real field that needs to be really mowed, I think you're going to have plenty of work down there that you're going to pay for anyway.
Right.
So I don't know if you're going to spend a lot more having this person mow those lawns as opposed to somebody else that you bring in from the city to mow the lawns.
Can I ask also, isn't that house also, I did some training in there last year, the year before?
Different house.
It's a different house? Okay, because that one is in pretty,
You're thinking of the charge house. This is the one that.
There's 2 houses that are vacant there now.
okay, thank you.
So, Robert, is that something you can bring back as sort of what the plan looks like for that? Is it just going to be straight rental, or I mean, I don't even know.
At this point, our plan was to move forward with it just being a straight rental, given that council basically said no to that idea when you brought it to them last time. So that's my plan. I think if the board sees this needing to be brought forward again, they should pursue that quickly, because we're looking to probably get that back on the market here in the next month or so. from my angle prior to this conversation.
Yes, Wayne?
Rich, what is your job description for the caretaker?
If I were to write the job description,
Yes.
it would be eyes and ears. Basically, I would take the Oregon State Parks contract, which is, we already had a contract of it 15 years ago, but I know there's a new one and there's compensation and so on. And I would want to get as much work out of them as I could. I don't know what the,
We want them to also be
mowing,
doing
basically
doing
mowing-
park services.
yeah, mowing lawns, general lookout, picking up garbage, maybe, and
Care of restrooms or?
yeah, maybe even looking at the restrooms. We got maintenance needs there. We have someone who lives there who we can get a big bang for the buck if we don't, I don't want to abuse the situation, but I would look to what all the needs are and see how much can we get a caretaker to do, and that's where I draw the line. You know, it's not a vacation spot. It's a person that loves parks, loves working around kids, loves working with music and concerts. I mean, these are the kind of things the city would look for, and then have it take place. And I think it'll be a huge benefit.
The compensation would be the ability to live in the house.
That'd be part of the compensation, but as I understand from Matt, there may be some legal things since when we looked at it last. Maybe we may have to give them a little bit of money on top of that. But like I said, we're already going to spend a little bit of money on top of that anyway with the mowing of the lawns and and all these things have to be done anyway. So if we had someone living there, I think we can get a little bigger bang for the buck, and we can have security, and we can have all the other things that go along with not having a renter there.
How do you have a day off for the caretaker? How does the caretaker get a day off?
Just like anyone else, there will be days that they're not working, but it's better than not working at all.
So, besides the house, if they balk about the house, the other option is most of them, caretakers bring their own trailer equipment in, that they live in it right there and can be the caretaker. So that's another option that could be done if they don't want to lose the rent from the house. So there's different things that could happen there, but the house to me makes a lot of sense.
Originally, we had thought that there might be 2 or 3 caretakers with RVs, because at the time, they were basically free. We let them stay there, and we put a little, the septic and things became expensive. But
I worry about the liability myself. There's so much stuff that goes on there after dark.
Well, and that's why we need a caretaker.
Unbelievable.
I have some input. I suggest that, it's on. I suggest that we can talk about this 4 hours. I think we all have good ideas on both sides. I think the board's heart is, yes, we would like to see a caretaker in that position because of the park. The city's heart is that, no, we can't afford to hire someone to do that. So I suggest that we make some appropriate but not demanding question of the city council and take this back to them, since they are the ones that will need to make the decision, not us, saying that we empathize, sympathize with what you're trying to say, and maybe get more information from them about what the hazards are as far as the city and how we could work around those. So right now, I think we're all pretty much wanting to have someone there. We think it's important. I think the board feels that way. But the city also has some really good reasons too, I'm sure, for not doing that. And I'm not sure a rental is going to be the right thing for that piece of property either. I think we're going to run into problems with that. So anyway, I would like to see you take this to the city council at first opportunity, with the idea that if everyone agrees that our hearts would like to see a caretaker on the property.
If the board voted that that was their intent, to send that message back to the council, now that the new rental laws are taking into effect.
Conversation only.
What's that?
On conversation only. We are not making a board decision.
Okay, I was just saying, if they did, then they would be placed on the calendar, and then there would be an opportunity for public input, and I would certainly be there for that.
Yes, Dylan?
I think that Richard makes a good point, and that it is at least worth recommending that we we make a recommendation to city council to look back into it, given the new circumstances that might change their decision. I think this is definitely worth looking into. Richard makes very good points about complications involved in renting it that could seriously detract from the value of the park. And yeah, I think it would be at least worth recommending that gets looked back into.
Is that a motion? You recommend council look back into the caretaker based on recently passed rental laws?
Yeah, sure.
I'm
Let's.
talking
I'm
about
so moved.
There's probably a lot of stuff that needs to be repaired and fixed as well, so.
That's being worked on.
So we have a motion.
I'll second the motion to get it on the floor.
All right. The motion to, I didn't hear that.
So for discussion, what I've noticed since the council sort of said no to this again, part of one of the unique things I've been allowed to be part of was the Keizer Citizens Police Academy. And one of the things they wanted to inform a certain group of citizens was the limitations that the city experiences from sort of the, what's Ben's job? Community and code enforcement and things like that. And we have one code enforcement person for a city of 40,000 people. Most of his time is spent specifically dealing with things related to the criminal response unit with the police. He's not able to combat issues of homelessness and other things that is really necessary, and this is really unfortunate. So we're at a position where we look at things from a couple different directions. One, either we get more code enforcement folks to tackle the issues. Within the last 2 weeks, I've had multiple conversations about people camping in Keizer Rapids in areas where they're not supposed to, not designated boat-in camping areas and things like that. From the Keizer Creek Watershed Council perspective, we see homeless camps in and around Keizer Rapids on a regular basis. There's been many weekends I've gone down there. Not so much anymore. You got new garbage cans, I think, right? Didn't you get new garbage cans down at Keizer Rapids now?
Mostly, yeah.
Yeah. So less litter and things like that. But these issues are happening all the time. Kids going out there doing burnouts and donuts and drifting down at the boat ramp and things like that. I think this is something that we actually really need to kind of take a look at and going back and looking through the history of some of the comments on either Facebook or Nextdoor. I'd really like to hear what Wes Keizer's position on this. Rich, I know you could sell water to a drowning man, but you know, it's one of those things where I think it's really important that when this topic does get brought up to council, if it does get brought up to council again, that the support is there, right? The loudest wheel gets the most grease. And so it's one of those things that, you know, I don't want to get into the politics of the renting and all the other stuff, but let's just do what's right. Let's bring it to what's important and making sure that we're taking care of what we have. You know, let the politics get dealt with the politicians and the lawyers and stuff like that. We need to approach this from a very common sense perspective of this is what's right, this is what we need to get done, and we need to take care of our park. So I really want to see this go forward again. Let's leave the politics at the door and let's let the council make a decision based off of what's right and not all the other nonsense involved. My own personal opinion, but.
Any other discussion? So,
What is the motion?
what is the motion? Since my ears are,
Is that the Parks Board recommend council look back into the caretaker based on on the caretaker based on the recently passed rental laws.
all those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, for bringing this to us. I had no idea.
Thank you.
Thanks, Squeaky Wheel.
Thanks, Richard.
No opposed. So all
Yes, we gotta
okay.
see if Debbie has any space.
You're all in
left on
favor.
her computer.
Seriously.
Okay. Parks report.
Oh, is that what he said? Mike.
Mike?
He said his-
Yes,
didn't he
went
want-
by Meadows the other day. There's like one down branch that I noticed. Grass is getting kind of tall now that it's raining a lot. It looks like,
Can hear it grow.
it looks like there's something being worked on there close to the playground.
The bench.
No, it's
That's another issue.
we're going to be installing a new drinking fountain there here shortly.
Okay, good. And then there was that bench that I had read was vandalized the other day and looked at it, and it looks like there's a few of the, looks like there were plastic boards on it that were broken off. Apparently it was a donated bench.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that came from exactly, but somebody brought it there to use and somebody decided to vandalize it. So
Okay, so it looks like it could be repaired, or I don't know if it was gonna be repaired or if you guys were planning to.
at this point, we haven't made plans to repair it. It may get removed and see if we can make repairs to it. It's
Didn't look like
it's
it'd be very
not,
hard
it wasn't a
to repair.
commercial grade bench, something that staff installed, so as kind of a donated item to the park, it might just be best to remove it for now.
Okay, and then on Clear Lake, I have to actually tell you, I thought I knew where Clear Lake was. I guess it's just part of the school there for the most part. It was raining pretty hard when I was out there, so I looked at the trees from a distance. and
There
it
you
looked
go.
Fine.
You saw Clear Lake.
Yeah. And that was it.
Donna?
Everything's okay on the hill with PFC Hill Park. And of course, Northridge remains as it always has, so.
Inaccessible.
And wet.
Clint?
Keizer Little League, I was up there last week and looked at the things that they're doing, and during that nice weather, the church came over with their whole church and helped them, and they got a lot of stuff done. So they're getting pretty close to open the season. The season does start on the 13th of this month, which is coming up pretty soon. And one of the things that they did get done is the major net over the wheel down below. They got that net all up now, so looks pretty good.
What about with them?
With them, I've been by there. They're just now starting to do a lot of work to clean everything up. You know, they're hoeing stuff and bringing bark dust and or different things in, and it's a little early. Next time I can maybe make a little better report after I see what they're doing.
Matt?
Oh, before I leave that, Matt, do you want to talk about the task force just a minute? Because I might,
Bring that up in other business.
okay.
So Bob Newton, truth be told, I haven't been down there in a while. I've been working on some other projects. Chalmers Jones got a little bit of a facelift here last month, which was part of the 9th annual community center cleanup hosted by Keizer Rotary and Clyde Creek Watershed Council. We had about 90 volunteers throughout the day, which was really a lot of fun. Got about 24 yards of debris. Again, it's one of those things that Robert and his guys are doing such a good job. We didn't have the near 30 yards that we normally have, but you know, we're still keeping up with things. A bunch of guys came out Thursday, Friday, doing the trimming, and then we had, like I said, a bunch of people out there on Saturday helping out. So it was a lot of fun. A little bit of a challenge because there was an event scheduled that day, job fair. So we had prospective teachers flying in and out of the parking lot, trying to run kids over. So that was interesting. The cool part with that event is it's evolved from sort of a lot of adults doing the project to now kids mostly doing it. We had mostly middle schoolers and high schoolers, which was a lot of fun. You know, looking good. Looking forward to splash pad opening up here when it starts getting warm. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Again, like I said, haven't been down to Bob Newton in a while. Just been kind of swamped. So I will have a better report on Bob Newton my next go around.
David, can I make one comment about Keizer Rapids?
Okay.
Thank you. I was at Keizer Rapids today. The Willamette River is running high. The side channels are flooding. The pond is flooding all the way back to the second pond. There is so one piece of yellow tape across the trail, across the flooded area to try to keep people out. And don't know if there's more tape that might be necessary, but that one piece of tape should keep a lot of people out of the flooded zone.
I think the water does a really good job of that.
Water.
So
Deep enough to go in the water.
For those who don't live on the river, which I do, you wouldn't believe the trash that's coming down the river. I've never seen, I mean, for 2 days, logs have been coming down there, and I mean, log, 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 just one right after the other. Huge logs, huge stumps. And the trash that comes up, we went down and cleaned my part of it up today, and you wouldn't believe the bottles and the plastic bags and stuff. Whoa. But the peak's going to hit tomorrow, I think, about 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock. So from that point on, it's going to go down. Probably will go up another foot tonight. It's pretty high.
How high?
It's supposed to get to 26 foot tomorrow.
Oh, good, 27's flood stage.
Yeah.
That's all I had about just, there is a hazard, a water hazard now.
Well, I've been down on that trail where it goes through the ponds, and you can hear that water running across there. It's got its own little channel that goes into both ponds. So I think the noise alone would be a great deterrent to most people.
For sane people.
The barbecue at the water park is completely submerged. You can't see the barbecue.
You mean the little camping
The
area?
camping area at the water park.
River Park.
River Park, yes.
River campsite.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the chart. It says right now it's at 24 feet, and it's supposed to get to 24.6. So it'll peak tomorrow.
Wow. Any other comments? Robert?
Well, you guys stole my Willamette River report, so I'll move on to
Sorry, man.
Carlson Skate Park. Hopefully you guys all had a chance to look at these 3D drawings that I have here. If you haven't, I encourage you to come take a look at them after the meeting. We can have a quick discussion about it. Staff is wanting to host a public meeting over at the skate park here sometime this next month and just get a little more insight from some of the local skaters that do use the park. What we have here in the drawings is basically plans to rebuild / overlay the 2 existing bowls and the half pipe area. We don't want to demo the entire area. What we want to do is pour new concrete over the top, approximately a foot thick or more, and rebuild the transition so that the park is skatable again, because I think you guys have been involved in this conversation enough in the recent conversations that the transitions are not built properly. Currently, if you're a skateboarder and you go out and try to drop into the bowl, most likely your board's going to get tossed out from underneath you when you hit that transition point in the bottom. So we want to fix that. As well as doing some more sanding of the rough concrete flat work up above, because as concrete ages and you get those tires rolling over it, it starts to become rough and similar to an exposed aggregate. We were able to get a lot of the sanding done 2 summers ago, and we've got a lot of good feedback. Kids really love the new surfacing where we were able to sand it, so we want to do some more of that as well, and then adding a couple other small features. But the big 3 ticket items would be the 2 bowls and the half pipe area to get rebuilt. So I can discuss that with you further if you want to come over and take a look at it here after the meeting. But what I wanted to let you know is we're planning on having a public meeting. I'll let the board know whenever we do that. We're going to have one of the skate park builders and designers that we worked with before come to that public meeting with us and kind of be able to answer some of the more in-depth professional questions that might arise, and as well as maybe having a few options. We're not going to be able to provide a lot of options because we kind of have a key goal of what we're trying to accomplish here. So it's not kind of like create your own skate park conversation. It's more like, hey, this is our plan, and if there's some tweaks that the kids want to see, we can hopefully work those in. So just want to let you guys know about that. Bathrooms at Keizer Rapids Park are open. They've been open for about 2.5, 3 weeks now.
Look good.
Yeah, they look great. They're functioning great. For the most part, they've been okay. Right after Sunday, spring break, we got in there Monday morning and it was pretty thrashed. Kind of completely out of toilet paper, which kind of goes back into the conversation of the park host who would have most likely filled the toilet paper for us on the weekend, who wasn't. We don't have staff on hand right now on the weekends. We will be transitioning into having a weekend temp working for us here prior to the end of May. But
Do you lock the bathrooms at night?
the bathrooms automatically lock at night.
Oh, they
Automatically lock. Yep.
Electronic bathroom.
And they unlock in the morning, sunrise to sunset, approximately, give or take a little bit if it's cloudy or rainy out.
Oh, okay. I was about to ask, how does that work?
Yeah,
It's
astronomical
just a
clock.
sun sensor?
Yep, sunrise to sunset.
You can get out if you're in when it locks.
Absolutely, you can get out if you're in. Not locking you in.
Fire standards.
What was the cost to do that whole job now that you're done?
I haven't heard the exact cost, but it was $400 and some thousand. But most of that was paid for by that grant that we received.
Okay.
Yeah, the grant that paid for the pathways, the bathroom, and the rubberized surfacing at the big toy. So those were really good additions to that park.
I just want to say, as somebody that takes 3-year-olds to that park, that it'll be really nice to go to a bathroom
Yeah.
with them.
Oh, yeah.
Rather than an outhouse.
No, we're getting a lot of good feedback. People really, really, really appreciate a permanent restroom versus a porta potty, that's for sure. So our guys have been doing as good a job as we can, trying to keep that thing spotless. But it can be challenging, especially, we had a great spring break this year. It was sunny all week, it seemed like, and it was just that park, you couldn't even find a place to park in the 2 parking lots. So, yeah, it was awesome to see. And mowing, we've been trying to get on the mowers when we can. It's been almost impossible. I was thinking about maybe looking at hovercraft mowers or something. I don't know. It's starting to get a little dicey for us. It's weird. We went from mowing about 4 weeks ago, and we were stirring up dust. It was that dry.
Right.
To now we can't hardly get on the turf. So
Can
we're
I ask
doing
a
what we
question
can.
about mowing as we go into summer? A couple of years ago, there was an issue where there was not enough people to actually do the mowing, and so I think Parks was looking for volunteers then. Is it all to be taken care of?
That's not the case anymore. With the $4 fee, we've got 2 additional employees. We bought a lot more equipment.
Good.
We're able to mow our parks faster than we used to. We have multiple guys that can go tackle it together. So we're not seeking volunteers for mowing any longer.
Excellent. Thank
Happy
you.
to say that. That's it.
Robert, do you have an approximate cost for the skate park?
Sorta, maybe $250,000-ish. Approximate, very approximate. We haven't had any official final numbers come in for that. It'll get put out to bid eventually, and then I'll have a number for you. But until we get that, there's kind of a rough ballpark.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Roland?
We had a kind of a busy week, but a few highlights. Oh, by the way, for the recognition volunteer, I want to thank all of you folks for recognize you for your volunteer here. And we got our cookies on the 1st, actually. Let's see, we had our West Keizer Neighborhood Association did their annual report, and of course, we have our budget coming up in May. It's going to be a busy time, probably 2-3 days with budget. We'll spend with budget. On the yesterday we had we were just mentioning about the I don't know if they call it active shooter. What's that called, Debbie?
Active shooter.
Yeah, and that was I want Trevor does a really good job in that, and the video is very interesting. And I recommend anybody that has a workplace that's big enough, or even 5 or more employees, to have him come and do that. And he actually offered, so in the community. But I think it's some good stuff in there. For some of us that have seen some crazy things with guns and stuff, you learn stuff from some of the stuff. And it's better to have it in your mind, although it's a very small percentage that it'll ever happen. But it's better to be prepared and know exactly if something does happen than last minute trying to scramble and try to figure it out. And like I say, that was an excellent training. And our next work session is going to be on the homeless initiative, coming up on, I believe, the 22nd. The mayor and I had the opportunity to go down to watch the governor knock down the old bus station with the equipment. It was kind of cool. And the new Center for Hope and Safety is going to be going up there. It's going to be a great. That whole block's basically going to be serving homeless and those less fortunate. What's the last thing I had here? Oh, yeah, remind me to get a card for that young Eagle Scout, send him a card, because that's really so cool that he's doing that. And, oh, yeah, we had the school district executive collaboration. We're doing a group of folks from all the Salem Keizer School District, and we're working on community engagement with schools and school communities and improving that and fine-tuning it to each community. And that's kind of a project that I'm involved in, and we will know more about it with our council as we progress. The last thing I'd like to let you know about the beacons, which I was just now accepted into the board. Well, they asked me to be on the board for all the schools in the Salem Keizer area, and I'm looking after McNary because the future of use of sports, and Mike McGann does a very good presentation on the success of folks that do sports or involved in anything, but sports in particular. And there's a lot of kids that can't play because, it's $175. When I was there, it was $35, and that was a lot of money, and now it's $175 for one sport. And they break down on how many sports but the goal is to have enough money for any kid that wants to play to be able to participate in sports. And right now, they're awarding scholarships to anybody in track. Anybody can be in track in any school here, and it doesn't cost. If you need a scholarship, you get help. So anyway, that's our goal. I'm part of that, and I think that's it. The last thing is there is coming up the McNary Booster fundraiser, and that's not till June, but I'll let you know ahead of time. And that's a big one for us as far as our community raising money for our athletics here. So that's pretty much all I had. I just want to let you know that I had some rough time this weekend. My brother was found in Ohio deceased, and I'll be leaving tomorrow probably Thursday morning to Ohio to go and to his service. But it's been a long week. I participated in a hearing this morning at the school district for one of the young men that I mentor, and that's very rewarding to watch some of these kids and the ups and downs of life. So that's all I got, and I appreciate again your volunteerism for you folks that are here. Thank you very much.
Other business.
He looks right at me. It's terrible. Okay, so Clint asked me to touch on this a little bit. So the Little League Task Force has been underway since, September or something like that. The goal of the Little League Task Force was to create long-term visioning and sustainability for the complex, specifically the Little League fields. Over the course of the last several months, we've met and talked at great length about what the future of that complex is going to look like. The general consensus so far is that the two organizations, McNary Youth Baseball and Keizer Little League, are going to partner with the city and a few other folks within the city and create a separate entity that is going to essentially take control over the complex itself. I think both organizations are going to retain their individual uniqueness and individual baseball philosophies. We'll be able to continue operating their programs very similar to what they've done so far. The key piece here is trying to reduce costs for those teams to be on the fields by eliminating slot fees, by doing some of those things like that, and really just looking at generating revenues that are going to go back into the complex, creating incentives beyond the revenues being discussed so that, let's say, for example, if they hit a specific net revenue dollars on concessions, let's say it's 35,000, all that goes into the complex. Anything beyond that gets split 50, 25, 25. So for example, if they make $45,000, 10,000 would be split up, 5,000 would go to the complex directly, and the other 2,500 per organization would go specifically for use for their organizations. The concept there is to create sort of the buy-in and the desirability of participation in the concessions process. So that's just one example. Scheduling is a huge deal, not only with the two organizations, but other organizations that have come to the table saying, look, we want to make sure that we have the opportunity to get scheduled in. If they're outside of what we would consider the two main organizations, there may be some slot fees and other things associated with that, but that's things that the what we're calling the Maintenance and Operations Committee can work on. So that's really at a high level. There's a lot more nuance to it. I was privileged to sit in 2 weeks ago with both boards. We had a discussion about this concept with both of their boards, their governing boards. The resounding response was very positive. I think that there's still a little bit of hesitation. You know, it's new, but overall they were very, very receptive to the idea. One of my old high school friends, Mike Bays, was there, so it was cool to see him and kind of get his reactions. So, you know, hearing from Mike and all the guys at MYB and KLL, it's really good. Interestingly enough, what I thought was going to be probably the most controversial piece of it was one of the least controversial pieces of it, and that is potentially looking to rename the facility. I think that both boards came to the conclusion that a rename of that facility would be single-handedly the most important point of healing and moving forward. Again, no decision has been made. Things are still being discussed there, but really, really positive, really good outcomes so far and recommendations. And I think we'll be rescheduling the meeting that we were supposed to have last week soon so we can actually kind of put a bow on it. The nice thing is they are already working towards some joint discussions and some joint committees this year. So they're trying to sort of ad hoc beta test some of this stuff this year to see how they can work together. Regardless, the communication and the cooperation has been very, very, very good. So, any other? So the one quick thing, West Keizer Neighborhood Association. So I talked to you guys a few months ago about the possibility of doing a project down at Wallace House. That is still being discussed. The Kathy Lincoln and some of the folks from West Keizer are going to be having a discussion about that, I think, tonight or tomorrow night or whenever they're meeting, to see kind of what their path to look at that project is moving forward. So that's encouraging. Recommendation for the Meadows Park Bench. If you guys don't want to get it out, let me know. I'll come get it, because I just, with it being broken, it's probably not a good thing to have kids sitting on that thing. So if you can't, let me know. I'll go get it. So volunteer of the quarter. There's going to be a really cool recognition on Monday. Unfortunately, I'm going to be on the road for work, so I can't be there. If you guys have the opportunity to go to city council meeting on Monday, please do. It's a group of young people I think that have done some really, really good work in our city, and I'd really like to see as many folks out there to support them and congratulate them on a real good job well done. You'll know when you get there and watch it. I'm not going to give it away now. If you have ideas for folks that you see are doing stellar jobs in the volunteer of the quarter, you're looking around, you're recognizing that, you know, these people or these individuals or this group is doing something outstanding, put a recommendation in. It's really good to get folks out there in front of the city council and get the little clock and be able to, you know, get appreciation for the things you're doing. So take a look around what your people and you know, maybe think, hey, you know, there's more people out there like Roland working real hard and not getting the pat on the back they deserve. So, last thing, April 20th is the second annual Soggy Day in the Park event hosted by Clag Creek Watershed Council. It's a free to the public event. We're going to be having bouncy houses and jet boats as long as the river cooperates. We're going to have free hot dogs given out. We're going to have nature trails. The first sort of full bloom of the Keizer Rotary Arboretum in honor of Wilbur Bloom will be up and running. It should look beautiful. And Jeff Davis is going to come out and run for us, and we're all going to watch him. I'm just kidding. But no, we're going to have fun. It's going to be that Saturday. Great event. Like I said, it's free to the public. Anybody can come down and enjoy. We're going to have Keizer Chambers going to be down there with their Keizer Fest booth giving out information, which is great. Trying to support Keizer Fest coming up in May. I am in need of volunteers, so if you've got a couple hours, you can come out on Saturday. I've already maybe sort of voluntold Chair Loudon for something that he doesn't know about yet.
What time does it start?
I don't remember. 10?
10?
Starts at 10, running until about 2. Chair Loudon did such a great job with parking last year, we just kind of kept them on there, so. Anyhow, that's all I got, I think. Yep, that's all I got.
Just curious for people volunteering, you'd need them there before 10 and after 2?
Yeah, so, and the other, like, the number one attraction last year was Robert Johnson. I told you all about this last year, but so we had the backhoe out there, and they're going to have it out there again this year. And I'm kind of hoping personally that Robert's going to be out there because he did such a great job and he was so patient. But yeah, be there if you're going to volunteer. Be there about 9:30, 9 or 9:30, and then a little bit after 2 because we got some cleanup and stuff like that. So if you want to volunteer, that'd be real helpful. Also, shout out to Dylan's group, the Satellite Gamers. They came out and helped out with the Civic Center cleanup, which was super cool. Thanks for bringing out a group of folks, Dylan. That was awesome. Wayne was there as always. Yeah, good stuff. We're doing some good stuff. I mean, we got money, but we're still doing some really cool projects, and we're still trying to make a volunteer impact, and it's just kind of exciting.
Your kid wants to volunteer.
He's always volunteering. I got pictures of him digging the rocks out here in the corner when we were doing the replacement in the gutters. So anyways, that's all I got, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Any other new business? Other business? Stand adjourned at 7:36.
Yeah. Cool.